The Spin-off Podcast Network.
K-pop to me means more than just listening to music. It's learning to be myself.
The Spin-off's new documentary, K-Pollies, follows 3 Pacific youth obsessed with K-pop. In a one-off documentary, see what they've found in Korean pop culture and how they bridge it with their own.
When you start dressing, looking different, everyone side-eyes you. But in K-pop, they're just like, no, like celebrate yourself.
Watch K-Pollies today at thespinoff.co.nz/videos. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by Spark Lab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about Spark Lab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
Tēnā koutou katoa and welcome to Business is Boring. Special is an advertising agency that's lived up to its name. Since starting, they've gone from a 3-person shop to a 4-country affair with offices in Auckland and Wellington, Sydney and Melbourne, LA, and now a just-announced London outpost. Special has been named Agency of the Year in its weight class year after year. In an industry that loves awards, they've won way more than their share, including being named Global Creative Agency of the Year by Industry Bible Campaign magazine in London. Their campaigns for Tourism New Zealand have seen people up and down the country say good morning to the world, and their work for Uber Eats has seen some of the world's biggest stars getting food delivered in to places like the Australian Open Centre Court. To talk the journey, building a powerhouse, growing in an industry that's seen a fair few struggles, and what's next, co-founder and CEO Tony Bradbourne joins us now. Tēnā koe, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for inviting us.
Hey, so let's go right back to the beginning. And I think I saw you in your very first office in Kingsland 14 odd years ago. What led you to start Special?
Well, it's interesting driving here to the studio this morning. I drove past where the original Special was, an old movie theatre in Kingsland. And we started with just 1 desk and 3 chairs and 0 clients. Are never the smartest way to start a business, but it does start it with a lot of focus, is a polite way to say it. Why did we start Special? I think it's the story of any startup. Is you get to a point and you kind of think across multiple levels, I think I can do this better. I think I can see a different way. We were driven to do ideas that we didn't think would easily see the light of day in traditional advertising agencies. We found ourselves in New Zealand. Most of us had spent much time overseas. I met Heath in Amsterdam. I myself worked in London for 7.5 years, then Amsterdam for 2.5 years. And so when we got back to New Zealand, we had all of this international experience and all these ideas of different ways of doing things. We all spent a couple of years doing our own thing. I was creative director of an independent agency called Generator. Heath had his own killer furniture store in Britomart. But we got back together and we thought, hey, we think there's an opportunity in this market to create something new and create something hopefully better. And you always think it's going to be better, right? So that was it. It was a combination of a lot of different aspects and timing and ambition and desire and craziness.
What was different about the New Zealand advertising scene after working at kind of the top level in those international places? Like, I imagine the budgets are a lot smaller and the expectations are probably not a lot smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Heath worked for, he had his own design company in Amsterdam. He was working Adidas and Nike through 180 and Wieden and Kennedy and just doing some killer work there. I was senior art director on Volvo for all of the European countries, so about 12 different territories, and flying to Sweden for new car launches and things like this. So we brought all that back down to New Zealand, and I think the great thing about New Zealand is there's a lot of ambition from clients down here, or they understand that they have to do something quite ambitious because their budgets, as you mentioned, don't quite match that. In larger markets, traditionally, people have been able to buy their way to cut through, buy their way to brand association. But in New Zealand, we don't generally have those massive budgets. You're right. So there was a bit more ambition here. Yeah.
How did you go about growing the business from the three of you? And what was the kind of, what did you think when you started out you wanted to be? What kind of size did you think you wanted to be?
Look, I always wanted to be the best agency in the world from the get-go. And it's a bit funny sitting in a large empty room that was extremely hot in summer and extremely cold in winter, and sort of saying, yeah, I think we can build the best agency in the world from here. So that was the want. How we did it was just work your butt off from day one, day and night. Make sure that every single piece of work you did, we had a rule, every single piece of work we did had to be so as good as we could make it, that it would get a headline, or it would get attention, or it would get written about in the trade press, because that was our ability to be able to get on the radar of new clients, new opportunities, new interesting problems to try and solve with creativity. So that was the way that was the glorious plan to success, was just absolutely work your butt off and do the best work of your life.
It sounds like a pretty good recipe. Were there any big turning points? Like, when did you know that it was on the way? Because I guess at one level, you're always able to shut up shop and go and work somewhere else. But at the other level, if you started an agency and you've put your own name on the shingle and, had a party and invited your friends over, there's a bit riding on it too, hey?
Yeah, and there's still that feeling now. I don't think it ever goes away. It's you lose sleep. You think about things constantly. It is always with you. But I think that's just the creative and business mind, is you're always inspired by the challenges that you get to work with clients. So, but for us, turning points, there's been hundreds. Our very first campaign for Orcon with Iggy Pop, it won a Cannes Grand Prix, and all of a sudden we were being written about in Vanity Fair, and we were being congratulated in the New Zealand Parliament. And this was us with only 9 people, probably the smallest agency ever in the world to win a Cannes Grand Prix, which for the uneducated in the advertising industry, which is full of awards, the best comparison is it's the Academy Awards. It's the best picture. And so when you do something like that in a category that's got over 3,000 entries from around the world, and this entry from New Zealand wins, all of a sudden that's a turning point. Michael Redwood coming on board in the early days to give us that much more of that account service rigor, that was a turning point. The ability to finally galvanise us and make the jump to opening an office in Sydney, something that a New Zealand agency had never done before, that was a turning point, because that was our first step towards being a global company, to evolving from just being a New Zealand company to now being a truly global company. And we've now got 6 offices around the world. We've got truly brilliant partners in multiple locations. And so, yeah, we're a constantly changing company.
Were there any moments where you didn't think it was going to work? Because I imagine coming out of the gates with such a big win as that Orcon campaign that, everyone will probably remember as being the one where you got people all around the place to collaborate on the song with Iggy Pop over the internet, which was a pretty radical idea.
Yeah.
Kind of 14 years ago, the internet's going to be good enough to do a song.
Looking back at the case study now, It's like watching Zoom. It's like anyone who saw that idea now, you go, what's interesting? This is just what I've been doing for 2 years, looking at lots of people on Zoom screens. But back then, yeah, heck, we should have painted it.
Yeah. And even the idea that, internet would be good enough to allow you to do something like this was radical.
Yeah.
Yeah, but coming out of the gate with something that strong must have put you in pretty good stead. But, growing and heading along, were there any times where you did think it was going too fast, you'd have to pull back, or it wasn't going to work?
Likewise, and equally, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times you are struck with setback or drama or not good news. And that's just part of being a business. That's just part of being a startup. and you kind of grow with it and you get used to it. And I think it's that ability to stay calm in moments of success and in moments of failure, to keep focused on what you're doing, keep believing in the talents you've got and where you're going and what you want to do, and don't let yourself be buffeted around by what other people think or what other people want you to do. If you can do that, I think probably most startups would probably say the same thing. If you can not get carried away with any success, but not get too floored by any failure, you will stay your course.
What are some of the campaigns that you've been happy with, the most happy with over the years?
Well, it's really interesting because I take every piece of work really, really personally, and it's you want this work to be exceptional. So obviously the Iggy one there, because that set us on our path. Recently, in the last couple of years, we've done some pieces of work that I'm very, very proud of. We did a campaign for Tourism New Zealand called Good Morning World, where we had a different Kiwi greet the world, get the world up on the right side of the foot, right side of the bed, because we see the sun first in New Zealand. So that gives us an opportunity, a little bit of time to put on the coffee and say, good morning world. And we did that every single day for an entire year. And it's been now recognised as one of the most effective campaigns in the world. Tourism New Zealand themselves call it their most effective work they've ever done. And that's quite staggering because they've been around for 30 years and have done, in my mind, some of the most pivotal and most strongly branded tourism work in the entire world. So that was one that made me feel real proud. Why? Because it's for the country, and you always want to do your best work for the country that you love and live in.
How do they measure that? As it's probably quite a hard time to be doing Tourism New Zealand work when no one can come here.
Well, the campaign, remember, it was about, almost 4 years old now. Right. So we're lucky to have it in the market well ahead of the first waves of COVID. Yeah, these ones and how you recognise the effectiveness, they are incredibly rigorous. You have to write a white paper that is 4,000 words long, and you have to justify it with a huge amount of metric, and then it's judged by some of the most rigorous judges globally. And so, Good Morning World was it was named as one of the 12 most effective campaigns last year, right up there with Nike's Dream Crazy, and to win an Effie, a grand Effie, global Effie. First time New Zealand's ever won it, so that's pretty cool. Other campaigns I'm really proud of. We did a campaign in the election called Medal in the New Zealand election, fronted by a Russian, of course, because they are the world's best at meddling in things. Probably an inappropriate campaign to run right now. But back in the day, it was tongue-in-cheek, and it was edgy, and it was the way we thought we could get Kiwis overseas who could vote but weren't voting, and historically have been, not voting election after election after election. So, we put our creative thinking behind that. And we worked with an incredible founder of Every Kiwi Votes, Tracy, and we came up with this idea that maybe we could get a Russian to encourage Kiwis overseas to meddle in their own election. They did. It was hugely successful. It grew overseas voting by 42%. So I love ideas like that where we can use our creativity to create behaviour change in really, really effective ways.
We'll be back shortly with Tony Bradbourne to hear how they open those offices overseas, what makes special, and what's next. Spark is proud to partner with the Sustainable Business Network and the Climate Action Toolbox. The free Climate Action Toolbox can provide you with simple step-by-step guides to measure and reduce your emissions. Help lead the way to a low-carbon future for New Zealand. Visit sparklab.co.nz/sustainability to find out more.
Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tamaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today.
Raising capital or taking your business to the world? Investment Fix has the lowdown on everything you need to make it happen. This season, we're exploring the US market, the opportunities it offers, what it takes to grow a business there, and the best way to approach investors. Join some of the superstars of the investment and business world as they share advice from their time in the US so you can make your mahi count in this massive market. The Investment Fix podcast, brought to you by Invest New Zealand. Tune in today.
We're back with Tony Bradbourne, co-founder and CEO of Special. So how have things changed in the 14 years since you began? How's the industry shifted in this period of so much change?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? I guess the obvious answer is the move towards more digital channels. A really interesting thing is you could say that the advertising and brands fell out of love with TV and were distracted by other interesting channels. And I think you can see now swing back to actually falling back in love with TV and the ability to better create great brand awareness and cut through using that channel, which is particularly good for entertainment, particularly good for some audiences, not all audiences, you know. So I think that's the big thing that's changed over the 14 years is just the proliferation of different channels and different ways that we can target people in much more intricate and unusual and, you know, fun ways.
Yeah, and being able to, I guess, fill out a whole story in a way where perhaps if you could only hit people with one idea across a few things, you can now layer it up and follow up the TV with a whole lot of digital and a whole lot of other elements.
Yeah, lots of our most successful work has been what you would call like multi-layered campaigns. It's not just a piece of TV. It's a piece of there's outdoor, there's activation, there's digital personalization, there is gamification at the heart of it. There's all of these different aspects that create what we call these really big, full, total campaigns. And they are proving in our experience, in our track record, to be highly, highly effective.
And at the same time, like you say, there's been that move back to those really big, in a world where there's so much fractured media and so much fractured messaging, those big things that everyone comes together on, like the ongoing success of things like The Block or Dancing with the Stars or the Super Bowl. And how is it to have been making, campaigns that see you doing spots for the Super Bowl? Yeah,
so it's amazing. These appointment viewing, not appointment viewing, these mass viewing moments where everyone seems to down tools and watch these big shared moments. They're great, and there's nothing bigger than the Super Bowl where, you know, America just stops for this 3 or 4 hours and watches it and loves watching the advertising that's in the middle of it. And most of the advertising is created just for that one single appearance. And that's pretty crazy and that's pretty fun as well. And yeah, we launched LA almost 2 years ago now, and the team over there have created the second Super Bowl spot now where we had Gwyneth Paltrow eating her own vagina-scented candle, which is a great moment in TV history. So, so it's just amazing, isn't it, to see where, a little idea from New Zealand is ending up in the world. And so an office in LA doing Super Bowl commercials is brilliant.
Tell me how you do go about that process of opening up international offices. Because you said it was one of the big turning points was getting it going in Australia in the first place. So how do you, you recruit really great kind of existing well-known talent in market where they've got a big reputation. But then how do you get that special house flavour established when they're in another market and there's another kind of context?
That's a really big question, and I wish there was a perfect playbook for it, and I could probably talk about it for a day. It's just, again, so breaking things down there is how did we start an office in Australia? The first thing is that everyone said no. Everyone said don't do it. It's never been done before from New Zealand. So what you do is the same way as we've ever done anything is you just start by trying. And we must have taken 100 flights to Sydney, back and forth, finding talent, finding clients, finding people that we know or New Zealand brands that want to export to the next major big market for most of them, which is Australia. And in that process, you find people and you understand things. It's just market research, but with Australia, we did it with just feet on the ground and spending time in a country that I really, really love. I think it's an incredible scene over there, Sydney and Melbourne. They're so competitive. There's so much good talent there. So to answer the second part of your question, finding that talent was really, really key. We spoke to a lot of people, but I think when you find people that are real like-minded individuals. They share the same desire to do ambitious work that you do. They share the same want to better create an amazing culture and be strongly value-led as a company. And so we met Lindsay and Cade, who are two of the partners that have really now taken Special to global heights. So that was that. But again, Sydney was replicated Auckland. We started in a small art gallery this time, and there was hardly any chairs again. You can see we never invest that much in furniture. And then we just heads down and worked our butts off. Yeah.
And the further international forays, so you opened up two in Australia, and then with Sydney and Melbourne, and then into LA, and now London. So what's the idea behind? Because that sounds really hard. You've now got kind of every time zone you could hope for, and how much of that involves you having to be involved with things and as kind of the creative force behind the business, and I guess that's a lot of the kind of house flavour. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so we set up each individual office to be independent, to not be micromanaged from afar. We need to have strong, independent people that are running it as their own business because it is their own business. So that was that thing there. Why? You asked a number of great questions. Is like, how difficult is it to do? It is really difficult because no one's done it before. I hope that this inspires other New Zealand companies from the creative industries to do the same thing. I really think that we have got incredible brains and innovation and skills down here in New Zealand. And I do think one of our big challenges is to actually get that to a wider audience. New Zealand is only 5 million people. Australia is 25 million people. So when we looked at that from a business point of view, and many of our New Zealand clients, as I said before, were wanting to go to Australia, would it make sense for us to open an offering in a much bigger market? And it does. And then you go to LA, and that is a huge market. And then going to London, I think, rounds out a global network. So we'll have 6 offices across 3 major territories, but we're already doing work across 12 different territories globally. So what that means for clients is if you're a New Zealand client, like a wine producer or something like that, your major markets are probably likely to be Australia, North America, and Europe. And now we've got a presence in all of those ones. And our goal is to have the best-in-class agency in every single one of it. We're Agency of the Year in New Zealand. We're Agency of the Year in Australia. We've been named Newcomer of the Year after just 6 months in LA. And that's the goal. So for New Zealand brands, it means they've got a trusted, world-class marketing, design, comms partner who can faithfully take that New Zealand origin story around the world. For other clients, and our goal is to get connect with those more larger, multi-region international clients, that we've got a network that's perfectly nimble, perfectly placed across the world, and is obviously doing world-class work. So for clients in New Zealand, there's an opportunity. For clients globally, they can tap into this really ambitious, innovative thinking. And so hopefully we believe it's going to be continue to be a successful model.
What's the kind of, what makes special? And the time that you've been doing this, kind of the wider context would be a lot of the big internationally networked agency networks have been retrenching, and a lot of the kind of traditional big retainer-based relationships have been coming up for review, and some of these big brands have been going, we don't need a global agency, we've got a centralised digital buying team. And, the big forces in all of the industry would be saying that it's a very difficult time to be doing something. What's making special? How are you able to be doing this in the face of these trends?
I think it's the work and the results we get. And we do very ambitious, non-traditional work that is just dripping with audacity, really. You look at it and you are moved by it, or it grabs your attention, or you love it, or you sing along to it. That's driven by a real incredible culture. And I think being an independent agency, not being owned by some foreign company with headquarters in Paris or London, being an independent agency, being able to make our choices really does help culture to flourish. So we've got incredible values that all offices run to. incredible culture across all offices, and we managed to attract and then work with really, really interesting people that I think are all bound together and drawn together by the same want to really leave a dent and really do extraordinary work in the world. We've got a saying which is, life is short, make it special. And we are not here to do average. So this ambition runs through every single special office. How do we keep the brand consistent? That's a really interesting thing now. We have got global playbooks in terms of how every single piece of special, from our presentations to all the rest of it, needs to look and feel. We have got a global team that meets several times a week just to make sure that all offices are in tune and working in step. We've got a global head of brand now because we are in our own right, a multi-region brand, and that's really exciting. Is actually taking all the learnings, all the things you talk to our clients about, and actually do it faithfully for yourself. And that's, again, it's just another thing that happens in the evolution of the story of special is there's these more challenges and more interesting places you find yourself.
And had you, when you started out, had you wanted to build to be, because succeeding, you'd come back from overseas to New Zealand, and succeeding in New Zealand's a pretty hard thing to do. Did you think you'd be building to a stage where you'd be sitting in a room not far from your first office in Kingsland and talking about Gwyneth Paltrow eating her own vagina-flavoured candle from a campaign that had come from your agency? Like impacting these really big, a lot of those Uber Eats campaigns have got the biggest names and entertainment involved in them.
Look, to tell you the truth, and I don't want to seem arrogant, but from the very start, we had the ambition to, as I said, create the greatest agency in the world. We were really lucky that, last year, Campaign UK magazine, which is like the Wall Street Journal of advertising, it's the industry Bible, named us Global Creative Agency of the Year, beating just these stellar agencies in New York and London and Singapore and that. And then they named us Global Independent Agency of the Year as well. So we've achieved that kind of crazy pipe dream of 14 years ago to build the best agency in the world from New Zealand. And that was one of the things we spoke about a lot at the start is we love New Zealand. We want to work in New Zealand, but we want to live in New Zealand, but work in the world. We didn't just want to be restricted to the briefs and business challenges that this geography offered. We wanted to work on the biggest, most challenging briefs in the world. We found that opening other offices was our way to connect with these bigger brands, because many of the biggest brands in the world do not have much of a presence in New Zealand, or they're not headquartered or run from New Zealand. So we found we had to try and go further afield to connect with that. But yeah, another goal was always to do the best work in the world from the bottom of the world. And I do think what we have found over the years is that being born on the edge of the world does give you a very unique perspective on the world. If you're in the middle of Hollywood, the way that you make a film is the way that Hollywood makes films. If you're Peter Jackson standing in New Zealand, he looks at how to make a film and he sees a different way. So I do love that perspective of being on the edge of the world that New Zealand offers us.
What are the cultural differences? Because it's very obvious that, in New Zealand, if you do a campaign with our biggest names, there's only so much scale to it. But then if you go into LA and you do a campaign with the biggest names in entertainment, obviously the scale and the budgets and the market size is bigger. But are there any kind of differences in thinking or ambition or, how comfortable, everything's got to be self-deprecating in New Zealand? And how do you have to change up kind of how special approaches things for the cultural differences of each of these markets?
Yeah, look, I wish I could take all the credit for all of the amazing Uber Eats work that's happening around the world, but I can't. But there is differences that especially the LA team work to. I guess traditionally, when you talk about a production budget, you would say that 70% would be spent on media, 30% would be spent on production of the assets that you play on media. With the Uber Eats work, they have really flipped and broken that model where the amount you spend on celebrities will often far outweigh what you spend on media, because the world's different now. Because success comes from if that piece of content you make gets shared 100 million times. amongst people, and that's what happened with the first Super Bowl commercial that the guys in Australia and LA did that brought back together the characters from Wayne's World. And the very first piece of work we did in America for Uber Eats, where we brought together, Captain Luke Picard and Luke Skywalker, the actors, Sir Patrick Stewart and Mark Hamill, together, it got shared, 115 million times in the first 24 hours. And that's success in the modern world because of how we can use these different channels, these different social media channels.
In terms of these other offices around the world, what's the plan? So you're gonna stay at 6 countries, or you've mentioned independent a few times, but does Special one day be acquired by one of these big agencies, or does it become one of these big agencies? What's your kind of hope there?
Well, it's interesting. We always pushed against the multinationals, but now we've found ourselves being a multinational. But uniquely, we're a multinational that's been founded from New Zealand. And that was another one of our ambitions, really, was to, why can't we create something global from New Zealand that goes up around the world, as opposed to the majority of the New Zealand advertising scene and most other advertising scenes it's all headquartered in New York, London, and Paris. And so the very last office they opened is one in little old New Zealand. We wanted to swim against the tide and try and turn the marketing head on doing that. So in terms of the independent question, look, we get approached every single month, and we've been repetitively saying we're very happy with the way that we're going now for 14 years. And that's the truth of the matter, is that we are very focused on what the type of company we want to build and the areas we want to go to. 6 different offices is a lot. So I think the next year is really about growing those incredible offices, learning new ways to actually play together and share the resources around the different offices and different locations, and really just enjoying that and just continuing to really focus on doing an incredible body of work for our clients, yeah.
What advice would you have for someone who does think that they can swim against the tide, because the tide really hasn't been for the kind of things that you're doing. And the tide certainly, although very talented New Zealanders have gone and made their mark overseas, or as part of multinational networks, building one from here is a pretty unique thing to do.
Yes, it's not really advice. It's just more of it's just up your ambition. I really think people need to have a good double shot of ambition every single morning, because I think it's the only way that you believe that you can do something as crazy as build the world's best agencies from New Zealand. It doesn't make any sense unless, of course, you're intoxicated by ambition and this real want to try and change the world and leave a dent and believe that you can offer something unique and different. So the only advice I'd give to people is just absolutely back yourself, be prepared to put in all of the hours, because creating anything great doesn't come easy. Stay focused on what you want to do and why you enjoy doing it. Really enjoying what you do every single day is so important as well, no matter what discipline you practice in. So, but the main thing is just don't let anyone say you can't do it.
And as a final thought, what will success be for you personally and for Special as a business?
That's your most tricky question for the whole. Look, it's I just love what Special's been able to do, and where we've come from and where we are now, and the amazing people that we get to work with every day, and the amazing partners we've got around the world, and it's an absolute joy now. I didn't ever really think it would still be doing this after 14 years. I don't think I necessarily knew if there was any end point. I don't really think there is any end point. We love what we're doing. We love the clients we get to work with, the challenges we get to work on. And so I think success is just really enjoying it every day, creating an environment that we manage to attract these amazing talent to work with us, and really good people, and for them not wanting to leave. And I think, look, every day is a joy. You open up your laptop every morning, and there's 100 emails in from around the world, different opportunities and different award wins and different accolades and feedback on things. And so, I just think every day is a success now.
That's awesome. It's a lovely way to look at it. And it's been great chatting to you. Thank you for sharing the story of Special so far. That's Tony Bradbourne, co-founder and CEO. Tēnā koe.
Thank you.
Thank you to Tony Bradbourne. to you for listening and for everyone who helps make this show happen. Do follow Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to rate and leave a review if you like what we do. E noho rā.
From the Spin-Off Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz.
Kia ora e te iwi, Te Aihe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spin-Off. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spin-Off member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
The Spin-Off Podcast Network.